Dr. Vinod, how much time I have?
Around 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, right. Thank you. So at the outset, thank you so much for now inviting me to this very interesting webinar. So, and I'm so happy that now something is happening on denotified tribes. I mean, which has been neglected in our academia, of course, in all aspects. So from very recently, there is some kind of attention. I mean, I do remember sometime back, when Professor Thorat was EGC chairman, ICCR chairman, he sanctioned some special sponsored program, research projects on nomadic denotified tribes. But otherwise also, I mean, if you see the studies, very scanty on nomadic and denotified tribe. But number wise, they constitute almost 10% of India's population. Okay, so yeah, with this note, and I at the outset also thank Disha. I mean, she has actually told us the legal aspects of denotified communities. So what I'll do here is something on the categorization. I would like to say some of my thoughts how this categorization actually happened, and how the whole this categorization process turned against the nomadic and non-denotified communities. So as you know, I mean, so these communities are categorized under different lists in different states. Some are in SC list, some are in ST list, some are in OBC list, some are nowhere. I mean, so even not included in the population enumeration as well. There are still people, right? So why this kind of mess was created actually is I attribute this to colonial anthropology. I mean, communities were now categorized on the basis of the colonial anthropological ethnological studies. So there is no even fixed criteria for categorizing particularly tribal communities. Okay. So the anthropologists have created a certain criteria to be classified or categorized as tribe or not denotified tribe. Of course, for Dalit, there is a one common experience, untouchability. So those who were having that experience, they were listed under SC category. But when it comes to denotified communities, it's a big challenge actually. I mean, the late colonial period anthropologists, particularly Elwin, Hyman Duff, Grigson, they were the architect of the tribal policies and all. So and they were actually preparing the list of the communities which can be included in ST and SC and OBC communities. So and the same thing has been followed, and you see communities, same community is listed in different lists in different states. I wanted to say some of my experiences of Lambada community. of Telugu state. It's while Telugu state now, of course, you have two states, Telangana and Andhra. So this Lambada community, it spread all over India, and they are called with different names. But the All India name given to them is Banjaras. The one connecting thread is the language, dress pattern, and some cultural symbols. So I think after Brahmins, Lambadas or Banjaras are one of the major pan-Indian community, we can say. And this community is listed in different lists. I mean, the neighboring states of Telugu states, like say Telangana now, Maharashtra and Karnataka. So in Telangana and Andhra, they are listed as STs. In Karnataka, they are listed as SC, and in Maharashtra, they are listed under Vimukta Jatis or OBC. So I mean, so these three regions are adjacent regions, and the same community is listed in different categories. Actually, I mean, it can be a very good comparative study of these three regions. I mean, so what is happening to Dalit Lambadas and OBC Lambadas and tribal Lambadas. So one has to do actually a comparative study of these three regions. But my general observation, I'll try to share in this next 15 minutes. So the criteria used by different anthropologists is again based on the mythological claims of this community, right? So the Telangana Lambadas or Banjaras claim their origin from the monkey kings Wali and Sugriva. So that was actually shown as a kind of a signifier by Edgar Thurston actually. And then the Karnataka Lambadas trace their origin from Jambava, from whom the Madigas and Untouchables trace their origin. I don't know how it happened, but this story is very popular among the Karnataka Lambadas. Whereas the Maharashtra Banjaras claim their origin from Krishna. There was two Mota Mola employees of Krishna who rears cattle. So I mean, these are the mythological things which were taken into consideration while categorizing these communities. Okay. So and of course, Banjaras basically a pastoral community who involved in a cattle rearing and transporting goods from the. I mean, it's very difficult to trace the early history, but from medieval period we have very clear evidence which tells us that this community involved in caravan trade and cattle rearing and stuff. They serve sultans and Mughals, and later on during medieval modern period Nizam, as well as British, French, all the European companies they were serving as commissariat transporters. And after, of course, railways, they were thrown out of this whole caravan trade, and then they were left with nothing. So it was in that period, they moved towards forest areas for grazing their cattle, and many of them actually settled as agriculturists, selling out their cattle in the forest areas. But a large chunk of them also lives in the plain areas, right? And as I told you, they are now categorized as STs in Telugu states. So what happened is, the tribal development schemes and tribal say education or all other constitutional provisions or whatever it is, basically addressed to the forest group. Okay, and here is the community which added to this list, and many of their concerns are not addressed. So in the agency areas, I mean, so if you're familiar with tribal constitutional measurements and development schemes, are very much confined to those scheduled areas, notified scheduled areas. And Lambadas settlements in these areas are very less. Okay. Not something about say 30%, 70% lives in the plain areas. And what's happening is the tribal development program, whatever comes directly to the ITDs, tribal integrated programs. So there you have education in every hamlets, and there are some development activity, I mean some schemes for constructing a road and other things. There is a guarantee for their land. So some, I'm not saying that they are benefiting or something like that. Things are very worst even in the agency areas as well. But what I'm trying to suggest here is the so whatever these schemes are now designed by the government are not Lambada centric. Lambadas were completely excluded from this development programs. So Lambadas in the plain areas don't have anything except a reservation in education. So what you see is Lambadas in higher education. Okay, like me, I mean, so there are many people, because till they get a government job, again they can't get government private jobs also. So there is a different kind of things and discrimination, all those things happening. So they go on studying. They are doing 2-3 degrees, PGs, and all that. Okay, so because only reservation only help them out to some extent. In the agency areas, after 10th and intermediate, there are some employment opportunities as forest Javans or beat officers, small, I mean, third, fourth grade employment. Teachers jobs are not given only the local in the agency. So some kind of edge you have in the agency areas, right? But in the plain there is nothing like that. Even for their developments, Tanda developments, even in the plain, the Lambadas don't live in the village society. They would be they would be living at least 1 or 2 kilometers away from the main villages. So what happens is these Tandas even don't get any schemes which comes for the village panchayat. Of course, I mean, village panchayat funds also confined to the main dominant caste areas in the village that we all know. So Tandas are completely neglected. You don't see any roads or no drainage or any things in the area. So that's number one thing. And the land, there is no protection for their land. Whereas in the agency areas, we have, so this land, tribal land alienation acts, and there is some, of course, there also there is a lot of exploitation, and many non-Adivasis are possessing, owning land in the agency area. That's a different kind of story. But here, at least even to claim a legal position, you don't have any protection. So recently, when Nagarjuna Sagar Dam was built, its submerged area was, that's a forest area, and there were many, I think something about 200 Lambada Tandas were relocated. So that time, Nehru was saying this is a temple, this and that, and so we have to sacrifice for nation and all that. So without any remuneration, when the dam was constructed, they would just move themselves to some hill areas and plain areas, which is basically barren land and all that. And then now means because they don't have any patta, they don't have any proper paper evidence, but they have been living there. Okay, so now many the outsider going and claiming that this land is there. So they don't know what to do now. So they were living there for last 50, 60 years, and now they are being again dislocated from there. I'm just giving example. So what's happening is there is a serious crisis in the Lambada society. So because they were now exposed to this caste society in a very what do you call crude and manner. So there are a lot of other cultural influences, transformation happening in the Lambada society. So there is a kind of Brahmanization of the Lambadas. Means now Ganesh is coming in the Lambada Tandas, and many other cultural celebrations are coming. Hindu cultural celebrations are now coming in their hamlets. So dowry, now became a serious problem. So you must have heard, sometimes back there was a big racket on girl child sale in this area. The adoption agencies were now trapping them and taking away their babies for sharing, for one bottle of liquor, kind of things. Why this is happening? Why the Lambada community feeling the girl child is a burden is because of the dowry. Okay, and this dowry actually came from the village society. Earlier there was no dowry system in their community. Okay, actually it was the other way around. If a male wants to marry some woman, he has to give a bullock and some money to the bride parent. But now it is completely reversed. Okay, so kind of example I'm just giving how cultural things are now working in the Lambada community, and there is a massive migration. Now if you go to any Lambada Tanda, you will find only the old people who are not able to work. Okay, and all the youngsters and people who can work are now on migration. If you come to Hyderabad, earlier the autos and rickshaws and taxis were run by Muslims, and even construction works. Now they are completely replaced by the Lambadas. All the taxi drivers, auto drivers, construction workers are actually Lambadas now in Hyderabad. Small all this they are also into scavenging works. Now role. I mean, scavenging work or action contracted to the private people. So they are employing this, and then you also surprise this urban club guys. I mean, the small workers are Lambadas, and if you see the degrees, you will surprise the master students, the degree holders, graduate students. They are doing plumbing work, cleaning work, house cleaning, and all that. So you can understand the level of poverty and distress prevailing in the Lambada community. So and many Lambada women are now also involved in flesh trade in the city as well, in the certain localities. So and they are being exploited. So all kinds of things. I mean, not only to Hyderabad, they actually go to the Bombay, Pune, somehow is southern Telangana. I mean, after Dasara, means this is a rainy season. From say they come back from the distance migrate places somewhere in the June. So they stay in their tandas June to Dasara. That's say October, November. Again they go on migration. Some guy from Bombay would come and take them on some lorry from here to Bombay, Pune in for construction and bricks making and other stuff. They are put up in the workplace, and how the things are you understand. So I mean, what I'm trying to tell you, I have actually done a study on educational status of tribes of Telangana. So and I have done community-wise variables as well. So if you see the literacy rate among the Lambadas, it's very low compared to the agency tribe, Gond and Koyas and some other small because they don't go on migration. Okay, they actually largely, of course, now from recent time you also see migration from the agency areas, but still compared to Lambadas, the migration is still low among these communities, and literacy rate is high. Of course, again when it comes to the higher education, again it is very low. It is because those who has some spark, some knowledge, or some whoever doing good in their studies, or given some jobs, some small group, third, fourth jobs after their 10th class and intermediate. So they are stopped there. When it comes to the Lambadas, you don't get any job at that class, so they go on studying. So you see Lambadas in the higher education. Okay, so you hardly see these agency tribes in the university education. So that means means a disparity. Means you can see, and you also see disparity within the Lambada community. Means those who have some land, they are really in a good position, but very small size. But 95% of the Lambadas are now living in a very hard situation. So what I see is basically they put in the wrong category. They should have put in a separate category, because their concerns, their issues are basically different from the agency tribe. So I think same is the case with the Madiga Lambadas of, or Dalit Lambadas of Karnataka. So there also, of course, a lot of tension is going on between the actual Dalits and Lambadas. Now in Telangana also there is a tension between the agency tribes and Lambadas as well. because there was from Maharashtra in the kind of border areas, there is a lot of migration actually. I mean, it's, to Telangana region. So if you cross the just border, you become ST, and in Maharashtra you are OBC. So like that, I mean, so now it is stopped, but in the 70s and 80s till 80s there were migrations. And it is creating kind of tension in some of the western Telangana pockets as well. So these are odd realities of this categorization. So my suggestion or understanding is that we have something about 15% of the 10%, 15 crores of nomadic people in this country, and they are from a diverse kind of background, and each community is a very unique. Of course, nomadism is a connecting thread among all the communities. So there is a need to create, put all these communities together, and provide a special provision for them in the constitution, and they should be just like SC, STs. They should be treated on par with SC and ST communities. So just now before me, Disha was talking. See, serious problem is this address proof. To access the state welfare schemes, you need a Aadhaar card, and you don't know how the nomadic communities are struggling to get these Aadhaar cards, because they would be moving from one village to another village. There are some entertaining communities. Okay, I'll conclude. So Vinod is sending messages to conclude. Yeah. So I mean, say, can we at least provide them a resident proof? That's very important. And unless we provide them that, they cannot even access the government schemes as well. Recently, last week, like we have been watching and talking so much about the Jai Bhim movie, a similar incident, every day happens around Hyderabad city. There are some tandas nearby Hyderabad, and if there is any undiscovered cases in Hyderabad city, theft cases, our Hyderabad police would go and pick up these people and book cases against them. Believe me, there are tandas who have 100 to 200 cases against one individual. Last week there was a similar kind of Jai Bhim kind of police custody beating. Lambada was completely become unconscious and all that. Community people are raising the voices, but things are really worse. I mean, they are living condition is I can't describe also, but this is the reality. So thank you, Vinod, for giving me this opportunity. I'm sorry. I think
I'm sorry, sir, disturbing you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. So we have